Festival, and I've just done an incredible panel with this amazing author, Anosh Irani. Hi, Anush, how are you?
Beck, how are you?
Now, you wrote a book, which I've read, called The Parcel. Can you just tell us a bit about that story?
Sure. So The Parcel is the story of a retired transgendered sex worker, and it's set in Bombay's red light district. And one day she gets a call from a very powerful brothel owner. A parcel has arrived, and it is the transgender sex worker's job to look after this parcel and prepare her, train her for what's to come.
So it's the panel we just did was called A Whole New World. So how did you, the man that you are, go into the world of a transgender sex worker?
You know, it's first of all, I did my best not to write this book for many, many years because I knew it was going to be a challenge. But I always believed that to enter someone else's consciousness or someone else's interior world, especially when they're so different from you, one cannot write out of fascination. One has to write out of compulsion. And you really need to understand the human being's wound. What is it that is really hurting this person, or what is the point of really deep pain within this human being? And I think once you understand that wound and truly understand it, which takes a lot of time, you found the entry into that person's interior life.
Yes, and that was a line running through all the authors. There was Chrissy Neen and Deborah Dobson. The wound, the entry point. I mean, ouch!
Yeah. Well, and in a novel, what really happens is, you know, when we talk about rising action in fiction, for example, what we really mean, at least what I think, is the wound gets more and more acute as the novel progresses, which is exactly what happens in The Parcel. I mean, Madhu, the main character, she just spirals out of control because every single time the pain gets worse, the wound gets deeper.
Yeah. Now, in the book, it's an incredible insight into the world of transgenders and transsexuals in Bombay. And there's this amazing scene which we talked about, which was the action of the castration. And this is an incredible moment in the book. Can you tell us a bit about writing that?
Sure. So in the Hijra community, that's what the transgender community is known as in India, many of them get themselves voluntarily castrated in a ceremony that is termed Nirvan. And they believe that it is the sort of impure male part of themselves that is flowing out through the blood.
And literally in the blood, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Yes. And writing that, you know, again, it was a challenge, but I think it was very essential because that's what you do in fiction. You challenge the reader. That's what literary fiction is about. You place the reader, you give the reader something that the reader doesn't want to stay with, but has no choice but to stay.
Yeah.
You know.
And the book is also about, I guess, the sex industry and the exploitation of children. Is this one of the reasons you wrote the book as well?
Yes, because I grew up right opposite the red light district. So from the time I was born till I was about 7 or 8 years old, I grew up opposite Kamatipura. And of course, you know, as a teenager, as an adult, I still had a lot of contact with it. And I really wrote this book in a way because I was compelled to as a witness. You know, I kept feeling that one has to at least write about this, mainly for me to get my head around things. You know, how do human beings do this to somebody else? I think Dostoevsky used the term artistic cruelty. You know, he said man is the only creature capable of being artistically cruel. And that's what I kept seeing. You know, and a lot of these people, these pimps, for example, they considered themselves, like one guy I met, he considered himself a family man, and yet at the same time he was in charge of women, and these were not sex workers. I mean, some of them are sex slaves, and there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's so many contradictions in that.
And that moral ambiguity is what you look for in fiction, right? It's it's not black, it's not white, it's there's a lot of grays in between, and navigating the gray is what makes fiction so interesting and necessary in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's next for you? You're back to Canada?
Back to Canada. Next for me is this thing called sleep, which...
What's that? Sleep when you're dead. That's what John Bon Jovi said.
Well, yeah. But I also write plays, so I have a new play in development. It's called Buffoon, and it's about a clown whose wife leaves him on his wedding night. So
devastating.
Yeah. It's a happy play, actually.
Buffoon. Is that a comedy?
It has moments of humor, I would say. Yeah.
And have you got any more panels?
Well, 3 more, and I'm also doing the closing address at the Brisbane Writers Fest, so I'm really looking.
You're a superstar.
Well, don't feel like it, but I'm glad that I'm here, and I must say I love Australia. I've always wanted to come here. Next thing for me, at some point, to see a live cricket match at the MCG on Boxing Day. Yeah.
Dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Lovely to meet you, and it's been great having a panel with you.
Thanks for your questions. You did a wonderful job on the panel, and lovely meeting you too. Thank you.
Thank you.